February is an important month in astrology because it's eclipse season. We've got a solar eclipse occurring in February, which means this is a whole new era because we have the eclipses happening in new signs, Aquarius and Leo. What's really kicking off this eclipse season is the full moon in Leo on February the 1st. This full moon in Leo is going to give us a sneak peek, a little teaser and taste of what we can expect with these Leo and Aquarius eclipses that are occurring not just in February but throughout this year and next year. So what I'm going to do in this video is go through all the 12 zodiac signs, share with you what this full moon in Leo means because this is pre-eclipse energy. So whatever occurs in the first day of February during this full moon in Leo is really going to be a reflection of what you're going to progress and transform throughout this year and next year. So keep your eyes on February the 1st because it's an important day in astrology. So with that being said, let's get into your zodiac. Aries, Aries rising, welcome to your full moon in Leo horoscope. So as soon as we kick off February the 1st, we have a full moon in Leo at 13 degrees. This is a no average full moon because this is pre-eclipse energy in motion. And whatever goes down during this time, it could be a week from this full moon, it could be during this full moon or a week after, is going to be very significant and connected to the solar eclipse we're having in Aquarius on February the 17th. So take notes of what's happening in your life during this time because it can be very significant. Eclipse energy can change a lot in your life. Now with full moons, it's more so about energies that you have consumed, absorbed, that you have really kind of experienced to the fullest, hence the full moon in Leo. And it's a time of reflecting and transforming what you have experienced and what has come into your awareness, whether that be transforming from letting certain things go that don't serve you or transforming that awareness, that wisdom, that experience into something new. So whatever happens, like I said, during this full moon in Leo is connected to the solar eclipse in Aquarius we're having on February the 17th. Now, the nodes are not yet in the Aquarius and Leo axis, but nonetheless, we're still going through shifts and changes. And during this full moon in Leo, it's going to give you a sneak peek into what you can expect. And what we're going to take a look at here are the areas of life that are impacted. Now, bear in mind, this horoscope specifically is more so based on the ascendant and not so much your sun sign, although you can still get a lot from looking at your sun and moon. But if you want something more specific, take a look at your ascendant. So we've got your 11th and 5th house being activated during this full moon in Leo. And also in the solar eclipse, you're going to have these axes very much strong and prominent. So the sun, which is the overall energy and more so the masculine energy and the ego and where the spotlight is, where there's a lot of focus, is in the 11th house of friends, groups, other people, your social networks, as well as your hopes and wishes for the future. So it seems like a lot of your energy, a lot of your drive, momentum, and a lot of your masculine energy is going to be here. So this may be a time where you're very much involved with a lot of people and friendships, or you're collaborating, or you're very social and you're spending a lot of time with other people. So they're going to be very significant in your life. They could be significant in your life in terms of helping you or supporting you with your hopes and wishes for the future, or just overall where you're at in life, you're very much invested. Excuse my alarm. However, the moon, which is more so what you're kind of keeping to yourself, what you're more sensitive towards, and what is playing a much more emotional role in your life during this time, is going to be in the 5th house. So emotionally, you're more invested with your inner child needs, what your inner child wants. So that could be having more fun, experiencing more leisure in life, or being more creative, expressing yourself more, and being more involved in creative projects and hobbies as well. Like that's what you're emotionally feeling. That's what's more important for you. And also, the fifth house has to do with romantic relationships as well. So that could have more of an emotional investment in your life as well during this time. So you might find during this time that you're feeling this push and pull between kind of like your social life and the hopes and wishes you have for yourself in the future, but also this inner child is really loud and is wanting more from you, and it's more emotional. And it seems like if you do let out the inner child, and if you're more playful, if you're more invested in your expression and creative endeavors and hobbies and projects, it's going to be really healing. It's going to really bring the best out of you. And because the full moon is in Leo, it wants you to shine. It wants you to express yourself to the fullest and not shy away, and really just be who you are, be creative, take the spotlight, and then not keep it so hidden. Okay, so that's what this energy is encouraging, and this energy will start to become more stronger as the solar eclipse approaches on February the 17th, and that's where you'll be able to pull from the fifth house all that you have learned during this time and apply it to the 11th house, where we're going to have that solar eclipse, where the friendships, the people you're involved with, the people that you know, and what you're building for the future in terms of hopes and wishes for the future, that's when that's going to start to become really strong in your life. So that's a full moon in Leo for you, and the pre-eclipse energy in motion. Take care, and I'll speak with you soon, Aries. Taurus rising, let's get into pre-eclipse energy. That's occurring on February the 1st, kicking off with this full moon in Leo. This full moon in Leo we're having at 13 degrees is very much connected with the solar eclipse we're going to have on February the 17th in the sign of Aquarius, because Leo is the opposite sign of Aquarius, and that's where the nodes will shift in summer. So whatever happens during this time is kind of a sneak peek, a teaser to what you can expect this year and next year regarding the eclipses and the transformation they're going to make in your life. And for you, this energy is going to be activating your 10th and 4th house. The 10th house being career, goals, and ambitions. And then you've got the 4th house being home, safety, and security, and your personal life, where you go to retreat and rejuvenate. So it seems like there's kind of like a push and pull between these two areas of life during this full moon in Leo on February the 1st. And these energies are going to be very strong throughout the year, because that's where the eclipses will be occurring. Now, to begin with, this full moon in Leo, we're going to have the sun in the 10th house, where your overall energy and the spotlight, your masculine energy, your drive, focus is going to be regarding career goals and ambitions. So that's what you're going to be very much focused on. That's where you're feeling just very proud of, and that's where you're directing a lot of your conscious focus. However, emotionally, what's kind of like hidden beneath the surface, and what you're more sensitive to, and what you're emotionally feeling that perhaps a lot of people don't know, is the 4th house. And that is home, that's family life, that's your inner world, and retreating and rejuvenating. That's where you're emotionally being called. Full moons are typically associated with releasing, ending, or transforming. The energy shows what we have absorbed or accumulated or experienced throughout the last lunar phases, and it's time to now shift that energy into something else. So it could be letting go and releasing what you've learned that doesn't serve you, or transform what you've learned and experienced and accumulated into something new. So there could be some shift and change and expansion regarding career goals and ambitions, but also under the surface, there's a lot of shifts emotionally, a lot of personal shifts, and a lot of perhaps even karmic shifts happening regarding home life and family life and your personal life, and where you find stability, security, and a sense of belonging. But it's showing that you emotionally perhaps need to retreat more in order to process your emotions. You're perhaps feeling more just cold, like the inner child is asking you to be more in your temple, which is typically the home, and to take time to process what you're feeling rather than just focusing on the external or focusing more on the masculine. It's asking you to also focus on the feminine energies. Now, regarding what happens during this period on February the 1st, it can happen a few days before, during this time, or a few days after, but the dynamics that you're feeling, it's going to be a push and pull, where there could be a lot of focus on the 10th house and a lot of expansion and growth, but on the other hand, you're feeling more emotionally sensitive and emotionally called to focus more on where you find a sense of belonging, where you find your sense of safety and security, and emotionally as well, what home means to you. And there may be some family dynamics that also need to be dealt with during this time. So it's a balance between the 10th and the 4th house. Remember, this is pre-eclipse energy, so it's really just going to set the kind of tone and perhaps even the foundation of what you can expect when we get into the solar eclipse in Aquarius, and what the themes of this year's eclipses as well as next year's eclipses may mean for you. So Taurus rising, take care, and I'll speak with you soon. Gem rising, welcome to your full moon in Leo pre-eclipse energy horoscope and forecast. So, full moon in Leo happening on February the 1st at 13 degrees. This is a sneak peek and a teaser to what you can expect during the solar eclipse in Aquarius that's happening on February the 17th, and also the themes of this year's eclipse as well as next year, when the nodes will shift into the Leo and Aquarius axis in summer 2026. So let's get started with what's happening during February the 1st and how this can become very important throughout this year. So it's really interesting because these eclipses are really reflecting what your personality is about and what perhaps life for you and your life path and what gives you a sense of purpose is all about. Because the moon and the sun will both be activating the travel houses. So you've got the sun, which is the mind and the ego, the conscious focus, in the 9th house. Now, when I say mind, I mean so much where your conscious focus is at. So the things you're also thinking a lot about. Yes, the mind is Mercury, but where the sun is in your chart, it also shows where a lot of the focus, your life focus is. So of course, it's going to consume a lot of your mind. And it's funny because the 9th house also rules over the higher mind and learning and foreign places and travel and faith and belief and spiritual beliefs and philosophies. So that's where a lot of your masculine energy is at. That's where a lot of your drive and momentum is also at, the conscious focus. And then you've got the emotions and the sensitivities in the 3rd house. Now, the 3rd house is not an emotional area of life. It's very much a curious area of life, just like your sign, where it's about learning and how you process information and data. It's about thinking and ideas, communication, speaking, writing, and also traveling, but more so your everyday travels and commutes. So that's where there's more of a feminine focus, should I say. However, during this full moon in Leo, because full moon in Leos show where the energy is at its fullest. So it's showing all that you have absorbed and accumulated and experienced since the last full moon as well, and what you're ready to transform. Now, that transformation can occur in either a letting go or release of what doesn't actually serve you when you come into that realization, or from what you've experienced and learned and accumulated, what and how you can transform that into something new. Now, this energy shows that perhaps there's a lot of things you need to get off your mind and off your chest and also off your heart, because the full moon is in Leo. And that full moon in Leo is going to be activating your 3rd house, which is a house of communication. So during this full moon in Leo, there may be some emotional conversations that occur, whether it be conversations you're having with yourself and coming to some strong realizations, or with other people. But because the moon is emotional and it's feminine, and when it's in Leo, it's very much expressive in what it's feeling. Okay, so this may be a time where you have to let out what you've been holding on to. And what you've been holding on to has been really consuming you for the last month, but now it's time to let it out. You're kind of getting everything into perspective, or you're getting an aha moment or an epiphany, or things are making sense. and you're ready to express it, which could be another form of releasing and letting go. Now, with the full moon in Leo in the third house, you've got to be careful of not being too dramatic or being just too much focused on your point of view. Also, being able to receive someone else's point of view, at least hear what they have to say, because that can be kind of like a flaw with a full moon in Leo in the third house. But this is also going to help you to gain more knowledge, more wisdom, and a fresh perspective so that you can move forward. And remember, the themes during this time are going to be very important because it's kind of like a sign, a reflection of what you can expect. So, whatever happens during this time, those themes and those situations are going to be very strong. Now, there may also be a lot of growth and expansion when it comes to travel or learning, if that's something you're involved in during this time, or even when it comes to like your spiritual beliefs and philosophies, because a solar eclipse in Aquarius on February the 17th is going to occur in your ninth house. So from February the 1st until we get to February the 17th, there may be this growth period where gradually you're seeing some changes regarding this area of life. And for some, it may happen another time. The thing with astrology is, although we have a lot of these dates, sometimes these dates are just activation points, or they help us to get one step closer to our goal. And that goal doesn't actually come into fruition until whenever we're ready for it, or whenever it's actually divine timing. So that's the thing with astrology. Yes, we have all these dates, but it's just a matter of divine timing and when it's your time. So travel and going to different places, that can happen, but at different periods. It could be at any eclipse, because remember, these eclipses are going to happen this year as well as next year. But it could also be just a seeding point, a planning or a preparing or a booking a trip, right? So it really varies. However, these energies are going to be very strong, where this is showing that there's a lot of growth and expansion in terms of your mind and your higher mind, and that can be through education, through learning, through spirituality, or through actually physically traveling. And in terms of communication, your mind evolving and expanding. And when it comes to learning new things and being very creative, this is great for creative expansion, and if you work on creative projects, because it's showing so much creativity coming through your mind. So Gem rising, have a great full moon in Leo. It's looking very exciting for you, and I'll speak with you soon. Hi Cancer rising, welcome to your full moon in Leo horoscope. This is an important full moon in Leo because it is connected to the eclipse that's occurring on February the 17th, the solar eclipse in Aquarius. And throughout this year and next year, the eclipses will fall in the Leo and Aquarius axis. Therefore, when we have this full moon in Leo on February the 1st at 13 degrees, it's going to activate an important theme and an important journey for your zodiac, especially those with a Cancer ascendant. And the areas of life that this energy, this full moon, and the eclipses to come that it's going to activate are the second and the eighth house axis. So the full moon in Leo will activate your second house, which has to do with you and what you own. This is about finances, money manifestation, your self-worth. That's a key word there. And then the eighth house, where the sun is, the eighth house has to do with what you share or own with others, with someone else. So it could be resources, it could be finances, it could also be intimacy. It can also, this area of life, have a lot to do with deep spiritual transformation. The eighth house is a very hidden and mysterious area of life. Like, it has its simple breakdowns and meanings. However, it's also very convoluted. So you can gain a lot of spiritual wisdom, a lot of spiritual wealth from the eighth house. Now, these are two areas of life that this full moon in Leo is going to activate. Now, emotionally, and your sensitivities and your feminine energy is going to be very much connected with all that you own in your life, and it's going to be connected to self-worth. So that's where your emotions are really going to be strong during this full moon in Leo. However, your conscious focus, and where there's a lot of spotlight and what's more open and in the air, is the sun in Aquarius in the eighth house. So there may be a lot of moving forward, a lot of growing and expansion in the eighth house regarding what you share with others, or when it comes to taking your relationships to the next level, especially in when we're looking at a marriage, a romantic, deep soulmate type of relationship, that could become more intense, or there could be a lot of profound transformations, or even when it comes to your own spiritual journey. There's more awakening, there's more enlightenment, there's more wisdom. Now, in terms of this full moon in Leo and what it means for your zodiac, this energy is kind of going to give you a teaser and a taste and a sneak peek to what you can expect throughout February as we approach the solar eclipse in Aquarius on February the 17th, but also throughout this year and next year. Now, the nodes don't shift into the Leo and Aquarius axis until summer, so that's why this energy, this full moon in Leo that we're having, and the eclipse that's to come on February the 17th, it's not as intense. It's more so, like I said, a teaser, a little sneak peek to what you can expect and what some of the themes will be for you. Now, emotionally, you're going to be very much connected, like I said, to the second house and all that you own, and what makes up your sense of self and your self-worth, especially when the moon is in Leo. It's very prideful. There's a lot of pride and there's a lot of focus on self. So there may be some changes and shifts there. Now, full moons do reveal some sort of ending or change or transformation coming up. And because all that we have absorbed since the last 28 days or even the last lunar phase, the energy is ready to shapeshift into something new. Whether it means releasing all that doesn't serve you and letting that go, or meaning all that you have accumulated, the wisdom, the experiences, and shifting and changing and transforming that into something new. But what's super highlighted for you is the area of life connected to self-worth. What makes you feel worthy? What makes you feel confident? What gives you your sense of self-worth? That's super important, and often that it has a ripple effect, because the more great we feel about ourselves, the more we're able to attract abundance. So this may be a journey of doing a lot of self-worth healing, doing a lot of healing work on yourself and in how worthy you feel, and working on the feminine aspect of that, so that you can attract and gain more abundance into your life just through how you feel about yourself. Because like I said, it is a ripple effect. But then also opposite the second house, you'll have the sun in the eighth house, which is showing that there needs to be a balance between the second and the eighth house. So make notes of what you feel during this time, because it's going to be very profound, okay? Especially throughout February and throughout this year and next year. I'll speak with you soon. Take care. Leo rising, welcome to your full moon in Leo horoscope. Now, you are one of the main characters for this full moon in Leo because, of course, it's in your sign. And it's going to occur on February the 1st at 13 degrees. So take a look at your Leo placements and take a look at where your Leo placements fall. If they're close to 13 degrees or exact at 13 degrees, this is going to be a very special and very important full moon for you. If not, it still is going to be very significant because it's in your sign and you're still one of the main characters, if not the main character of this full moon in Leo energy. So let's get into it. Now, this full moon in Leo is a special full moon in Leo and an important one because in February we have a solar eclipse happening in your opposite sign. And this full moon in Leo is kind of going to give us a teaser and taster to the themes of what these eclipses in 2026 and next year in 2027 will mean, what the themes, what the journeys and the experiences we're going to go through, what they may mean. So it's a sneak peek, a little teaser, a little taster. So writing down some notes on how you're feeling either a few days before this full moon in Leo or during the full moon in Leo or after is going to be really important, in the sense of you can actually have like this journal of the eclipse journey you're on, because of course the eclipses will occur in your sign and your opposite sign. The nodes don't shift until summer and they don't move into the Leo and Aquarius axis, but nonetheless, we're still kicking off this eclipse energy, this eclipse tour early in February. So because you've got the full moon in Leo in your sign, it's falling in your first house. So this has to do with me, myself, and I, identity, my life path and purpose. Remember, the first house is the dragon's breath. It creates the entire astrology wheel and chart. And then you have the sun, which is going to be in your opposite sign in the seventh house of other people, relationships. And sometimes this area of life can show opposition, meaning where you can have disagreements or where you're kind of in if you, especially if you're in a relationship, you're not able to meet eye to eye. And then that's very common in relationships, but that's the journey of relationships. Sometimes you agree on certain things, sometimes you don't, and you have to work it out. So these are the two areas of life that are being triggered. And throughout this eclipse journey, and on February the 1st, when we have this full moon in Leo, there's going to be a lot of focus on your wants, your needs, and your desires, and you're going to be expanding on yourself. You're going to be evolving and growing, and this is where you can have profound life changes. And when we have this full moon in Leo, it's going to give you, like I said, a sneak peek to what you can expect. So the themes around this full moon in Leo will reflect on this eclipse journey throughout the next year and a half, or even going up to 2 years. So that's going to be super significant, is you and your personal evolution. But then also, opposite, we've got the seventh house. So relationships are also changing. This could mean new relationships. This could be old relationships coming to an end, a transformation in relationships. But I often say this all the time, is other people are just holding up a mirror. We're all holding up a mirror for one another. We're all holding up a spiritual mirror. And the most growth actually occurs when we are in relationships together, but also when we're apart in relationships, and when we really dive into self and do a lot of that healing shadow work. So you're going to be growing and evolving and expanding. And when you have the eclipses in your sign, this could trigger all aspects of life. It doesn't even have to just be the first and seventh house. It could also be home, family, career, goals, ambitions, friends, travel, you name it. Okay? So February the 1st, the full moon in Leo, there may be something that comes to an end, or you release, or even something transforms. It's not going to be as intense unless you have the Leo energy at 13 degrees or close enough. But nonetheless, this is going to be establishing and laying the foundation of what you can expect. Personal growth, personal evolution throughout all aspects of life, as well as relationships. So Leo rising, take care, and I'll speak with you soon. Virgo rising, welcome to your full moon in Leo horoscope. So this full moon in Leo is kind of setting the foundation and giving us a bit of a sneak peek to what we can expect throughout 2026 and 2027 in terms of the eclipses. Now, the Pisces and Virgo eclipses are still ongoing because the nodes are still in your and your opposite sign, and we still have the final eclipses in your sign. However, simultaneously, we have this new energy, the Leo and Aquarius eclipse energy, also in motion. Now, we have a solar eclipse in Aquarius on February the 17th, but right before that, on February the 1st, we got a full moon in Leo, and this is connected to the solar eclipse in Aquarius that's happening on February the 17th and the eclipses we're having throughout this year and next year. So it's very important because you are releasing and letting go and closing some chapters of the past, but then also some new beginnings are occurring. The journey of self, identity, life path, purpose, relationships is continuing, but also this new journey of your daily life and how it's organized, your routine, your wellness, your self-care, how much you're pouring into yourself and other people, as well as your creativity, your spiritual journey, and your intuition, and that psychic energy that we all have, that is also emerging and expanding this year. Now, the sun in Aquarius will be in the sixth house. So this is where your conscious focus is at. And this is where there's a lot of energy, spotlight, drive, stamina, and momentum. And there may be, throughout February, there may be this really kind of focused period of where you're kind of innovating how your daily life is at. Perhaps you're used to a certain routine and you're very disciplined and structured, but the Aquarius energy is asking you to change things up and get out of your boring routine and spice it up a little bit and have more just flexibility in your life, because even though Aquarius is a fixed sign, it's still an air sign, so it needs to move around, it needs change, it needs innovation. So you may find that your routine and how your everyday life is structured is changing. You're desiring more change and more freedom, and you're working towards that, because that's the sun, the conscious focus. That's where you're focusing and building and expanding. But then emotionally, what's kind of hidden and perhaps only you're aware of and only you know because it's the moon, you're feeling more drawn to also retreat and nurture and nourish kind of like the spiritual journey that we're all on, but you're, especially with the moon in the 12th house, you're feeling it more. You're perhaps going through an emotional sensitive time as well, because the 12th house is a very sensitive area of life, and when the moon is there, it's just amplified. You're perhaps also gaining a lot of strong epiphanies, or your intuition is much more stronger and you're wanting to nurture and nourish that part of yourself, and perhaps creativity is helping you through this process. Now, the 12th house is interesting because it's the last area of life in the astrology wheel, right, in the astrology house system. So when you have a full moon in the 12th house, this could be again emphasizing on closure from the past, a past karmic cycle, or energies that have been reoccurring, but emotionally you're ready to put them to an end and move forward. So it can be this deep spiritual transformation that occurs, but this journey is going to continue throughout this year and next year, because these eclipses in Aquarius and Leo are going to be ongoing. So this may just be kind of like a sneak peek, a taster of what you can expect with this eclipse journey in the Aquarius and Leo axis, but nonetheless, your life, your everyday life is changing. How you take care of yourself, how you nurture yourself, your spiritual journey, your intuition, and your creativity, that's all going to play a huge role throughout this year and next year. So, Virgo rising, take care, and I'll speak with you soon. Hi Libra rising, welcome to your full moon in Leo horoscope. So this full moon in Leo is an important full moon because it is connected to the solar eclipse in Aquarius that's going to occur on February the 17th. And also, this full moon in Leo is important because we're also going to have an eclipse in the sign of Leo this year. And where the Aquarius and Leo axis falls in your chart, they're going to be significant throughout this year and next year due to the eclipses. So pay attention, because the themes and the energies and the emotions that come up can reflect the journey of the eclipse that you may go through. So let's start off with the full moon in Leo energy. So the moon's going to be in Leo, and it's going to be activating your 11th house. So this has to do with friends, social networks, your acquaintances, groups you're part of, your social life, as well as your hopes and wishes for the future. And emotionally, which is the moon, your femininity, your sensitive side, is much more invested and involved with this area of life during this time. Now, full moons typically reflect an ending of some sort, some type of closure or a transformation. It's a time where the energy is so intense and full. It's all that you have absorbed and experienced since the last lunar phase or the last 28 days, and the energy is now ready to shapeshift into something else. So it could be letting go of the things that don't serve you from all that you've experienced and absorbed throughout the last month, or that energy and the wisdom and the experiences that you have accumulated thus far that is ready to also transform into something new. And this is really important because the full moon in Leo is very much creative, and it's very expressive. So if you are involved in any type of collaboration, this could be really great because the Leo energy gives you a lot of confidence. It gives you a lot of self-belief, and also that creative energy. And the 11th house, which involves other people, the people you know and that you are in groups with, or are your friends, or in a social network with, they can help you and support you, and you can come into this collaboration, this creative collaboration, where you can actually express some of your emotional needs and desires through some sort of project, a creative project. And this could have to do with your hopes and wishes for the future. Now, opposite to the moon, you're going to have the sun in Aquarius in the 5th house. The sun is showing where your conscious focus is at and what is really shining, and that is all out there, and that's your creativity. That's also your self-expression. That's your just your how different you are and how unique you are, and what brings you joy, and how you experience fun and pleasure in life. And also the 5th house has to do with romance and dating and romantic endeavors and relationships. So that's going to be a huge focus during this time as well. And whatever, like I said, goes on during this time, especially a few days before or during the full moon in Leo, throughout the week of the full moon, is going to start to gradually grow and expand as we reach to the solar eclipse in Aquarius on February the 17th, which will actually occur in your 5th house. So there's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of energy, and a lot of focus on enjoying yourself, expressing yourself, having fun. Romance and relationships are supercharged up during this time as well. So make notes of what you're experiencing and what some of the emotions are, what you're going through, because those themes and those energies can be a sneak peek to what you can expect throughout this year and next year regarding the eclipses. So Libra rising, take care, and I'll speak with you soon. Hi Scorpio rising, welcome to your full moon in Leo 2026 horoscope. This full moon in Leo is super significant because it's connected to the eclipses. We are going to have the eclipses in the Leo and Aquarius axis this year. And in February, although February the 1st is just your normal full moon in Leo, it's still really important because it's giving us a little sneak peek, a teaser and taste of what we can expect throughout the Leo and Aquarius eclipses. But we also do have a solar eclipse on February the 17th in the sign of Aquarius, so opposite the Leo energy. Now remember, in order for a full moon to form, you're going to have the full moon in one sign, and then opposite is going to be the sun. So in this case, we've got the full moon in Leo, but opposite, we've got the sun in Aquarius. And that is why it's connected to the eclipses, because these are the areas of life that will be supercharged and activated. And for you, it's going to be your 10th and 4th house axis. The moon will be in the 10th house, which is career, goals, ambitions. And then you have the sun, which will be in the 4th house, which is home, family, your personal life, sense of security, stability, and belonging. This is the area of life where you go to retreat and rejuvenate. Now let's start off with the moon. So the moon is your emotions, your sensitivities, and for you, it's connected to career goals and ambitions. So that's where a lot of your emotional focus is. That's where you're feeling more emotionally attuned and sensitive to. And because its full moon is in Leo, it gives you a lot of creativity as well. And it gives you also a lot of sense of self and self-belief and a lot of confidence to achieve what you want to achieve. And you'll find that throughout this year, next year, there's going to be a lot of focus and a lot of growth and expansion in this area of life. And then opposite to the moon, you've got the sun, where it reflects and shows your conscious focus and where you're more masculinely attuned to, because this is your the sun is more your vitality, and also it shows a lot about our stamina and where there's a lot of energy and focus and movement. So with the sun being in the fourth house, there's also a lot of focus on home and your family life, your personal life, security and stability. And these are the two areas that are going to be very significant, like I said, throughout this year and next year. But particularly when we kick off this full moon in Leo, all that you're experiencing or feeling or that's coming up, whether it's a few days before the full moon, whether it's during the full moon or within the week of the full moon, write down and make some notes, because when you go through this eclipse journey for the next year and a half to 2 years, you can reflect back and see what those seeding points were. And this full moon in Leo, although it's a full moon and full moons have a lot to do with releasing and closure and transformation, this is also a bit of a seeding point as well, because whatever kind of like occurs during this time can reflect and show what will expand and where there'll be quite a focus on throughout this year with the eclipses as well as next year. So for you, Scorpio rising, there could be expansion and transformation regarding your career, goals and ambitions, especially if you've been working on a specific or certain type of goal, as well as growth and expansion and changes regarding your home life and family life. Now remember, Pluto is in Aquarius, so is in your fourth house, so there's already a lot of transformation and changes happening, perhaps on a spiritual level, on a kind of psychological level, but nonetheless there are changes happening here and you can't resist the change. Change is going to occur. So Scorpio rising, take care, and I'll speak with you soon. Hi Sag rising, let's talk about the full moon in Leo. Now this full moon in Leo is connected to the eclipses of this year and next year. And also we have an eclipse happening in February. We have it on February the 17th in the opposite sign, which is Aquarius. So a lot that you experience or feel during this time can be a reflection of what you can expect through the Leo and Aquarius eclipses. So make some notes, journal. It'll be great for you to journal this journey, and when you get to the end of this eclipse, and I mean the end of this eclipse cycle, which typically it's a year and a half from when the nodes change signs, but nonetheless, a year to two from now, you can reflect back on what this whole eclipse journey in the sign of Leo and Aquarius has meant for you. Now, it's really interesting because these eclipses kind of reflect you. They're really activating your travel axis and the mind. So this is kind of like really exciting for you in a way. Now, this full moon in Leo, particularly on February the 1st, that's happening at 13 degrees, is going to be in your ninth house. The ninth house is about travel, long distance journeys. It's about expanding your mind. It's about spiritual beliefs and philosophies and faith. And it seems like emotionally, and where you're more sensitive is in this area. That's where you're emotionally invested. That's where you feel like you need to kind of nurture and nourish yourself. Whereas opposite the moon is a sun in Aquarius, which is more of your conscious focus and where there's more kind of like a direct energy, and where there's more kind of movement as well externally in your kind of like outer realm and world. And that's in the third house of the mind, of ideas, of how you process your thoughts, and information and communication is key with the third house, as well as travel. But travel is kind of more short distance travels and shorter journeys. So that's where there's a lot of focus, expansion, and shifts happening, okay? And this is going to be a long journey with the Leo and Aquarius eclipses. So there's going to be pivotal moments and moments of acceleration and change and shift. For some people, you know, it may start off with just like a few things changing, and then as time goes on, you'll start to see how many changes have actually occurred throughout that journey. But nonetheless, you are growing, your mind is changing, and you are evolving. This could be through physically traveling, it could be through reading and researching, it could be through communicating, learning. And during this full moon, because full moons often reflect an ending, a closure, or transformation, it seems like what you have kind of like experienced and absorbed throughout, let's say, the last 28 days, it's ready to move into something new and transform into something new. This could be for some people a travel opportunity, or for some it could be an educational opportunity, or where you're just able to expand your mind, or just spiritual epiphanies coming through and really developing on your spiritual beliefs and philosophies. There's also a lot of strong communication involved, and a lot of the communication and what's going on in your mind will be kind of a reflection, and a continuation will occur during the solar eclipse in Aquarius that's happening on February the 17th. So the themes around this time have to do with you evolving from your mind, spiritually evolving and expanding. In terms of your communication, that's going to be growing and evolving you, and there may be really profound, important conversations that occur that kind of bring you a sense of freedom. But with the moon in the ninth house, there is an infinity to travel during this time, and so some of yous may be packing, and some of yous may be kind of like planning ahead, and kind of this is like a seeding point as well, where you're not necessarily traveling, but you are planning to travel. So that's exciting, and it could also have to do with learning and education, but it's all about expanding the horizons with the ninth house. So whatever it is you get up to, whether it's education, whether it's traveling, whether it's researching and learning or communicating, it's going to really evolve you, and it's an adventurous time for you. So Sag rising, take care, and I'll speak with you soon. Hi Cap Rising, welcome to your full moon in Leo horoscope. So this full moon in Leo is important because it is connected to the eclipses. This year's eclipses are occurring in the Aquarius and Leo axis. In fact, in February the 17th, we have a solar eclipse in Aquarius. So whatever occurs during this full moon in Leo will give some details to what we can expect throughout this year and next year regarding the eclipses. Now, the full moon in Leo is occurring in your 8th house, whereas the sun will be in your 2nd house. So the moon, which is the emotions, your sensitivities, your intuition, where you feel like you need more nurturing and nourishment, and perhaps where you're more emotionally kind of attached to or more emotionally invested. For you, it's in the 8th house. Now, what is the 8th house? So the 8th house is shared resources, it's shared finances, it's intimacy, it's deep spiritual transformation. So you can perhaps feel just very much in tune with the spiritual realm during this time. You may want to, especially because the moon is a very spiritual planet. Well, not planet, it's a celestial body, but it's a very spiritual celestial body. It can say a lot about, if you want to get esoteric with it, it can say a lot about intuition, psychic energy, the past lives. So there could be some type of transformation occurring there, or it could be more on a physical level where we're looking at more of the shared resource aspects with it, something that you share with other people or someone else. And then opposite, you've got the sun. The sun in Aquarius, which is where more of your conscious focus is at, and where there's also a lot of opportunity for growth and expansion. And the 2nd house has to do with me and what I own and my resources, and it goes back to self-worth as well. Typically, if you think about it, how we feel about ourselves, meaning our self-worth, our self-belief and confidence, can impact how much abundance we attract into our life, or what abundance looks like, or what our attitudes and then thoughts are on abundance, right? So that's where the 2nd house and the Aquarius energy is at. So both of these areas of life are supercharged, and they will be throughout February as well as this year and next year. So you can take notes of what occurs for you during this time, such as the emotions, the themes, the experiences, what you're feeling, what's dream time like, because it can give you a teaser, a little sneak peek of what's to come. Now, full moons are usually associated with a letting go, a release, some type of ending, closure, or a transformation. And the moon during this time is at its fullest. It's absorbed a lot. Its energy is full. So all that you have experienced and learned, and the emotions you've gone through, all that you've absorbed from just your inner realm, the outer realm, and people, environments, that energy is ready to now shift and change. It could shift and change in terms of letting go and releasing what doesn't serve you, or shifting and changing that energy into something new. So it could either be letting go of something or something transforming regarding the 2nd and 8th house axis. And that is going to be more so based on your individual circumstances and what's currently going on, because with the 8th house, it's very convoluted. You know, it has that mundane aspect to it, but then it also has a very deep, esoteric, spiritual aspect, so it can vary depending on your chart and what's currently going on. But the main themes here are self-worth, resources that you own or what you share with someone else, navigating through that, as well as intimacy. If you are in a relationship, you're expanding your relationship, growing, transforming in your relationship, or if you're on a very spiritual journey and perhaps you're working on self-worth, perhaps you're working on the spiritual aspect of abundance. So that's where the energies will be for you during this full moon in Leo, but they are connected with the eclipse, and that's where the focus will be throughout this year and next year. So Cap Rising, wishing you all the best during this full moon in Leo, and I'll speak with you soon. Hi Aquarius Rising, welcome to the full moon in Leo horoscope. Now this full moon is occurring in your opposite sign, so you're one of the main characters. And interestingly enough, in the month of February, you also have a solar eclipse in Aquarius. So things are really heating up and getting ready to shift and change. Remember, the eclipses are occurring in your sign this year and next year. Now, the nodes are still in the Pisces and Virgo axis. They're not changing until summer, but nonetheless, we're still going to experience this eclipse energy. And during this full moon in Leo, which is happening right at the beginning of the month, February the 1st, at 13 degrees, this energy is kind of setting the tone, the pace. It's giving us a sneak peek, a little teaser and taster to what we can expect throughout this year and next year during the eclipses and the eclipse journey. So pay attention to some of the emotions you're experiencing, some of the thoughts that are coming up, the experiences, dream time, the themes. It would be great if you could like journal and have like this journal of the eclipses throughout the next year and a half or two, and then you can reflect back on what that eclipse journey has meant for you, because it's not like every day you have eclipses in your sign, right? Especially when Pluto, the planet of transformation, is in your sign. So let's get back to this full moon. Now, this full moon is happening in Leo at 13 degrees. So if you have planets in either Aquarius or Leo at 13 degrees or close by, this is going to be more significant and profound for you. But even if you don't have the degrees exact or close enough, it's still in your opposite sign, and the sun will be in your sign, so it's still very important. Now, the sun, which is in Aquarius, which is more of the conscious focus, will be in the 1st house, where there's a lot of focus on you, your identity, some of your goals and life path and purpose. And being in the sign of Aquarius, of course, it has a lot to do with individuality and how unique you are and freedom. Perhaps, you know, humanitarianism is a huge goal as well for you. And then opposite, you've got the 7th house, which is where the moon in Leo will be at. The 7th house has to do with other people, particularly relationships. And the full moon in Leo, the moon in general is your emotions, it's your sensitivities, it's, you know, what you're more emotionally invested and attached to. So you may experience strong emotions, and it may be an emotional time regarding relationships and partnerships. When the moon is in Leo, it just wants to express itself and it just wants to be loved. And then that's what you may kind of feel during this time, where you want to just express your emotions, or the inner child wants to come out and play. That's a typical moon in Leo energy. It's the inner child, the fun energy. It's so creative and it's just beautiful. So it may be a very emotional time regarding relationships, but also there's just a lot of fun and creativity here to experience. Now, with the sun, there's a lot of focus on your life right now, and you're probably super focused, and you probably have a lot of goals for yourself, because whenever the sun enters one zodiac, that really kind of intensifies how you your focus on yourself, your identity, and your life path and purpose, and the goals you want to achieve and accomplish in this time and space. So there could be some transformation occurring in both of these areas of life, or it could simply be just a starting point, a seeding point, setting the foundation, giving you a bit of a sneak peek, teaser, taster to what you can expect in February when we have the solar eclipse in Aquarius, and also throughout the next year and a half to 2 years. So Aquarius, this is your big one. This is your big one, and intentions and being very intentional, because our thoughts are magnetic, and what we feel, everything is magnetic, right? This psychic energy that is always around us is super strong, now more than ever. So we got to be very thoughtful, mindful, aware, and intentional, especially when you got Pluto, the planet of transformation, in your sign. Now, typically full moons are about releasing, letting go, and transforming. It kind of reflects all that you have absorbed and experienced, whether it being emotions, people, places, environments, since the last 28 days, and now you're ready to let it out or release it or transform it into something else. And that could have to do with you, your life, identity, goals, as well as relationships. So Aquarius rising, it's a big one. And we're getting ready for that solar eclipse in Aquarius on February the 17th. And happy solar return to all those celebrating, and I'll speak with you soon. Lots of love. Hi Pisces, Pisces rising. Welcome to your full moon in Leo horoscope. So we got a full moon in Leo happening on February the 1st at 13 degrees, and this is connected to the eclipses because this year's eclipses are occurring in the Aquarius and Leo axis. And we also have an eclipse happening on February the 17th, a solar eclipse in the sign of Aquarius, which is also connected to this full moon in Leo we're having, because the full moon will be in Leo, but the sun will be opposite the moon in the sign of Aquarius. So you see how they're connected? Now, this full moon in Leo may give us a bit of a sneak peek, a taster. It may be a seeding point, or it may just lay the foundation, set the pace and tone of what we can expect throughout the month of February and throughout the year, when we're having these eclipses, as well as next year as well. So let's start off with the sun, because the sun is going to be in your 12th house, okay? It's really fascinating because the sun is more of the conscious energy, which is more seen. It takes a spotlight. It's very energized. It's vitality, whereas the 12th house is kind of like the unseen realm. It's very convoluted. It's a very mysterious area of life, and it's very hidden. It's the last area of life in astrology. So when you got the sun in the 12th house, it just shows that kind of like your masculine energy is more kind of reserved during this time, and you perhaps are wanting to focus more on your inner realm, your sensitivities, your emotions, and typically that's more the moon, right? But here's the sun in the 12th house, and that's where it's more consciously focused at, and perhaps you are more invested in your area of retreat, or what kind of makes you feel good, or what kind of soothes you on a spiritual level. Okay, on a spiritual level, it could have to do with creativity and arts. It could have to do with your spiritual practices. But nonetheless, that's where the focus is. There's also a lot of focus on intuition and dreams, and also you may receive a lot of epiphanies during this time. And there's also a focus on the past. The 12th house can also reveal on the past. And with the sun here, there's more of a conscious focus. So rather than the past coming up, it's almost like, yeah, it can just come up, but you're also very consciously aware that it's coming up, or you're wanting to, and you're making the conscious effort to kind of learn more about what the past has meant for you and how you can move forward from it. And then opposite the sun, you've got the moon in the 6th house. The 6th house is your daily life routine, how it's structured, self-care, wellness, as well as being of service to others. And that's where the moon is at. And the moon is all about emotions, sensitivities, nourishment, and nurturing. So that's where your feminine energy is at. And you may be trying to organize your day-to-day life and kind of like the activities and routine that you have to make it more nurturing for yourself, to make it more soothing and more comforting for the inner child. And the reason why I say the inner child is because the moon's in Leo, and the Leo energy is very much the inner child. It's playful, it's fun, it's exuberant. So that's what you may be also navigating through, like how can I kind of nurture myself more, how can I support my inner child, because no matter how old you are, no matter what phase of life you're at, we still have an inner child within us, and that inner child never goes away. But also, you may take a lot of interest in taking care of yourself in terms of health and wellness. That may be key. You may be getting that nudge as well to focus more on it. And you also perhaps, and not to mention that this area of life also has to do with work. So with a moon here, there's more of an emotional investment here. There's more of an emotional focus and more of an emotional attachment to work life as well. And being in Leo, this could have to do with creativity and self-expression. Now, full moons typically have to do with endings, closure, or a transformation. This is when the energy is most fullest and it's ready to either release what's no longer serving it or transform into something new. So there may be something new that occurs regarding work life or your everyday life that is very connected with the Leo energy, as well as the Aquarius energy, because remember, the Aquarius energy is opposite the moon in the 6th house. So you're kind of pulling from the Aquarius energy as well. It may have to do with the inner child, expression, creativity, or it may be very spiritual. But that's where these areas of life are really being activated, and these eclipses will expand these areas of life for you throughout the month of February and throughout this year and next year. So Pisces rising, wishing you all the best, and I'll speak with you soon.